Hello, friend. Welcome back to Fairfax Files, where we uncover the chilling truths behind the most disturbing crimes. Today's case takes us back to 1959, into the quiet farmlands of Alberta, where a young man named Robert Raymond Cook left behind a trail of horror that would haunt the province for decades. This is not just a story of murder. It's a story of betrayal, identity, deception, and the terrifying aftermath of unresolved grief. Grab your tea, settle in, and let's open this file together. Alberta in the 1950s was a province on the cusp of transformation. The oil boom had recently begun with the Leduc No. 1 discovery in 1947, ushering in an economic surge. Yet in rural communities like Hanna and Stettler, life remained grounded in agriculture and tradition. The landscape was vast, endless prairies meeting big skies. Winters were long and harsh. Summers, short and hot. Families gathered around radios for news. Meals were home cooked, and neighbors trusted one another. Violent crime was rare. A murder made headlines for weeks, even months. There was a strong sense of order, shaped by a post-war moral code. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the RCMP, were symbols of integrity, and the law was respected. Most people locked their doors only in winter months to keep out the cold, not intruders. Against this backdrop of peace and social conservatism, the Cook murders shook Alberta to its core. Robert Raymond Cook was born in Hanna, in Alberta, in 1937. He was the only child of Raymond Cook and Raymond's first wife, who tragically died of illness when Robert was just 5 years old. Her loss left a hole in his emotional foundation, as expected. And because Robert's father, Raymond, was traditional, hardworking, he was also stoic, strict, and not really giving in to affection. He was 23 years older than the woman he would marry later. Her name, Daisy May. And this is the tough part. She was Robert's former teacher. That alone added complexity to the family dynamic. Imagine being a teenage boy, watching your teacher become your stepmother, and then the mother of 5 new siblings. That's how many kids they had together. 5. Daisy had known Robert as a student and then became a maternal authority figure. The emotional lines were blurred. Many believe Robert felt replaced, not once, but twice. First by Daisy taking his mother's place, then by the arrival of younger siblings who received the warmth and stability he may have lacked in a family setting. By his late teens, Robert was already known to the police. His criminal record wasn't limited to petty theft. He was charged with armed robbery, also car theft, fraud, and carrying unregistered firearms. One notable incident involved him forging checks under fake names. a sign of his growing comfort with lies and manipulation. He was once a charming young man, but he was often charming the wrong authority figures because those who knew him better saw another side of him: cold, calculating, and deflective when cornered. In early June 1959, Robert was released from the Calgary Remand Centre. He had just served time for attempting to sell stolen typewriters and for unlawful possession of a firearm. Upon release, he made his way back to Stettler, not to rebuild bridges, but to set into motion a chilling plan. Neighbors began to notice something odd. Just days after Robert got out of jail and went back home, the usually lively Cook household had gone silent. No kids running around, no chatter, no chores being done. Yet Robert was seen often, wearing his father's clothes, driving his father's car, wearing his father's watch, and even going as far as introducing himself as Raymond Cook, his dad's name. On June 28, 1959, police searched the Cook property. They were curious as to what was going on and made a horrific discovery: 7 bodies: Raymond, Daisy, and the 5 children, buried in a shallow grave beneath manure in the root cellar. Raymond and Daisy had been shot execution style in the head. The children, ages 3 through 9, were bludgeoned with a blunt object. The brutal contrast in killing methods prompted intense speculation. Why shoot the adults but beat the children? One theory suggests the gun jammed after the first 2 shots. Another theory is that Robert feared the noise would attract attention in the middle of the night or the day. A more disturbing theory is psychological, that the physical act of bludgeoning was somehow easier for him and maybe even more of a pleasure for him because it was taking back the power away from his siblings that took his dad and his family away from him. The RCMP quickly zeroed in on Robert. He claimed his family had gone on vacation. A lie, easily disproven. No bags were packed, no tickets were bought, and no family sightings since his release. Blood was found on the farm. Soil samples showed signs of recent digging. Witnesses reported Robert trying to sell his father's car in Edmonton and giving widely different stories about where his family had gone. He even attempted to pawn family items, including his stepmother's jewelry. He was also caught lying in other smaller ways, failing to mention he'd visited the house after his release, forging documents to pose as his father, and using multiple aliases when questioned. The police knew they had their man, even without direct forensic evidence. Robert was charged with all 7 murders. However, prosecutors chose to try him for the murder of his dad, Raymond Cook, first. Under Alberta law at the time, that was enough to seek the death penalty. The trial began November 1959. Crowds lined up to get into the courthouse. The case had captivated the province. The idea that a young man could murder his entire family was unthinkable, especially in a place like Stettler. The prosecution presented Robert as a manipulator who killed his family to avoid facing their disappointment, or possibly to claim their property. The defense, led by attorney R.P. Davidson, insisted the evidence was circumstantial. Davidson later stated, "I never saw him in the capacity to do such a thing. If he did it, he wore the mask of innocence like a second skin." Despite the eloquent defense, the jury took just 3 hours to return a verdict: guilty. Robert Raymond Cook was sentenced to death by hanging. Robert Cook spent nearly 17 months on death row at Fort Saskatchewan Provincial Jail. During this time, public sentiment remained divided. Some believed in his guilt, citing his lies, behavior, and motive. Others questioned whether the police had rushed the investigation. There were appeals, petitions, and even clergy members asking for clemency. But Robert, he never confessed. Not to police, not to his lawyer, not to the priest who visited him before execution. In prison, he wrote letters, read books, and remained eerily calm. One of his writings, a poem, survives. It read, "As I sit behind these walls of stone, my name engraved, but not my own. They call me killer, call me liar, yet never saw the gun nor fire. Judge and jury made their vow, but God alone will know me now." On November 15th, 1960, Robert was led to the gallows. He declined a blindfold. His final words were, "I am still not guilty." At 23 years old, he became the last person executed in Alberta. Sometimes the worst monsters don't come from shadows. They come from sorrow, from homes where love died early and pain took root. Robert Raymond Cook lost his mother too young and perhaps never emotionally recovered. His father's remarriage to a much younger former teacher added confusion, and his alienation only deepened. But pain never justifies cruelty. Robert had chances to ask for help, to change direction. Instead, he chose silence, lies, and perhaps revenge. Deception is a powerful force, but how can we detect it? Research shows that habitual liars tend to over-explain, avoid direct answers, and often contradict themselves. Micro expressions, tiny little facial cues, may betray their words. Nervous fidgeting, eye movement, and even too much eye contact can all be clues. But the most powerful tool we have? Pattern recognition. When someone's actions and words consistently don't match, it's a red flag. Robert was caught not by a smoking gun, but by the weight of his own contradictions. Lies, no matter how clever, eventually crumble. And so we learn, trust your instincts, seek truth over comfort, and never ignore a gut feeling, because in a world where lies can kill, truth saves lives. Thank you for joining me. This is the Fairfax Files. If this episode opened your eyes or stirred your soul, raised any questions in your heart, please go ahead and comment below, and tell me what you think about this case. And don't forget to subscribe. Once you hit the thumbs up button, I will know that you enjoyed your time with me. Fairfax Files just isn't about crime. It's also about the human condition. I'll see you next week. Make sure you stay safe. Follow truth, remember clarity, and be compassionate. Be safe out there.